Hello and welcome to my book launch for my second novel, Sentinels Rising, the second installment in the Sentinel series, the first being Sentinels Awaken, which was published in October 2020. And Sentinels Rising follows consecutively, continues straight after book one. And in Sentinels Rising, we're in Vesperi. The Gerald has just rescued the king from the clutches of the Ascendants, who are determined to overthrow all of the current rulers and take over the world of Remagerin. And of course, the Ascendants are not very happy with that, so they retaliate. And Gerald is caught up in defending the king and the people he loved from further attacks, whilst also trying to understand who the Sentinels are that he's awoken. So in book one, he wakens some of the Leandri, the goddess who created the world of Remagerin, some of her personal guards who have been asleep in these sentinel trees for over 3,000 years. And Gerald is the one that can wake them, as the need for their help and assistance is needed again to protect the world, as they're the protectors for Lady Leandri. And so, although he's woken them, he doesn't really know who they are or what they're capable of. And so he's trying to find out more and trying to understand them, as well as understand who his enemies are. I mean, who's trying to kill him and destroy his world. He needs to find out more about the Ascendants and who they are and where they came from. So this book is really all about understanding more who the Sentinels are, who the Ascendants are, and what they're both trying to achieve. And book two is out today, March 17th. So hopefully you will go ahead and have a look. I thought I would read a brief excerpt, which I've now lost the place, but we will read a brief excerpt for you just to get a taster of what the book is like, and hopefully you will be wanting to read more. So this is chapter 7. Again, the Ascendants are retaliating, and this is the day after some occurrences that have happened already in the beginning of the book. And we continue, and this chapter really is giving us a little bit more insight into the Sentinels, which I think is key, that we need to understand a little bit more about them, where they came from, and what they're like. So this is a conversation between Balerion and Cerulean, two of the Sentinels that Gerald has awoken. So chapter 7, the Palace Barracks in Old Vespers. The day after the attack, Balerion was off duty, having handed the captain over to Tadgeril. He awoke to the all-encompassing embrace of his tree and stretched luxuriously. Staring up at the hazy mist above him, Balerion smiled, feeling refreshed and relaxed. The comforting hum of his sentinel increased as he rose and performed the first move of Eperon, acknowledgement, to wake him properly, the training he had first learnt in the Rangers' Academy. Memories of his days at the academy flooded his mind as he flowed through the movements, stirring more memories that he didn't want to revisit, and he clamped down on them as he drew to a halt and breathed deeply. He dressed in shirt and trousers, the soft linen caressing his skin, reminding him that he lived again. Yes, in a different time, but was it really so different? He buckled on his sword belt, and caressing the ornate hilt, he remembered the day Tadgeral's father had given it to him. Repressing the memory, he picked up his jacket and slid home his daggers. Leaving his sentinel, he entered the lady's temple. The white marble gleamed in the morning sun, and it shimmered in greeting as Balerion knelt at her altar. For some reason, the temple had always reacted to his presence. Once again, he prayed for her forgiveness as he opened his mind, searching for the deity who controlled his destiny. Emptiness echoed around him. She wasn't there. His heart clenched as he wavered. But no, she had given him his orders, protect the captain. Until she said otherwise, that was his purpose. Rising, he bowed to her altar and left. He planned to do some research in the chapter house, if he could avoid scholar torsion. Maybe if he tucked himself away in a corner, they wouldn't find him. A shadowy alcove hid him from prying eyes as he found a book on the histories of Vesperi. He began working his way through the last century, trying to learn the vagaries of the country he now lived in. He read about the politics and spheres of influence of the current administration with the intent of identifying any internal threats against the captain, as if there weren't enough external threats already. He had gone from having a pulse on the political landscape to knowing nothing, and he didn't like the feeling. He sat working his way through a weighty tome about the current administration of Vesperi when the presence of another sentinel impinged on his senses. Valerian looked up at his best friend and grinned. Along with Tadgerel, the three of them had been inseparable at the academy until they had graduated and been posted all over Remagerin. I have a lot of reading to catch up on. You all had a head start on me. Through no fault of your own, you didn't have access to any books until you joined the Rangers, Cerulean said, sitting next to him. He peered at the book. What are you reading? Valerian held up a cover. The History of Vesperian Administration, 4005 to 4105. Thought I'd see what's been happening in the last century or so, according to the scholars anyway. Cerulean laughed. I wouldn't believe all that you read. I've just had an interesting session with Scholar Torsion, and if his interview techniques are indicative of how they collate history, then it will be far off the mark. Valerian leaned back in his chair. Oh, yes. As you said, he's very interested in you. In fact, I would say he is rather fixated. He was desperate to find out what you did at the end. And you said? That I had no idea, which is true. I was there, and yet I have no idea what you did. What did happen at the end? Valerian stilled, his heart fluttering in his chest as his brain shut down. He closed his eyes as he unconsciously withdrew behind his considerable reserve, and Cerulean reached over to grip his shoulder. Stop blaming yourself for something that wasn't your fault. Valerian stared down at his book, the text blurring. He had to clear his throat to make his voice work. You'll never forgive me. For what? Cerulean asked, as he eased the now crumpled book out of Valerian's fingers. I saw Leandri and Galere fall. I couldn't help them. Why couldn't you help them? Cerulean asked. I wasn't with them, and I should have been. I couldn't reach them in time. Valerian cleared his throat again. His chest constricted as Leandri's final moments spooled past his eyes. You said it was Leandri's choice. You were following her orders. Do you think you could have stopped her? Valerian shook his head, unable to speak. You couldn't, so stop thinking you could. Where were you? The Ascendants built a communications array in the Justice Building. It was huge, rings of crystals. Leandri sent me to destroy it. Marguerite sent Cerulean to protect me. It didn't quite go to plan. Valerian twisted his lips. He rescued Cerulean. He was hurt. Who knows if he made it, or Marianil, and the others. Valerian gripped Cerulean's arm, his eyes gleaming. Cerulean returned the embrace. Marguerite wouldn't have sent Cerulean after you if it hadn't been important. If you hadn't taken out that array, it would have been much worse for everyone. You know that, Valerian. Valerian eased his shoulders. I should have been with her. No, that was Galere's job. Yours was to follow Leandri's orders. Cerulean's grip tightened on his arm. You hear me? None of this was your fault. Out of the three of them, Cerulean always saw things so clearly. Valerian nodded. I'm so glad you are here, he whispered. I'm glad you are here too, Cerulean replied, pulling his friend into a rough embrace. He blinked furiously as he cleared his throat. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to drag up old memories. They are not that old. It seems like only yesterday we were at the academy and you were teaching me to read. Cerulean laughed. I only started you off. The scholars taught you the rest. Valerian gave him a tentative smile. No, it was those late night sessions. What do you think Torsion wants? Cerulean asked. Valerian sighed. He reminds me of Clary. The same arrogant sneer, the anger simmering under the surface as if he's owed. He doesn't like me. You don't say, Cerulean frowned. It's not just dislike. Torsion is determined to turn everyone against you, much like Clary did, come to think of it. He tilted his head, inspecting his friend. What is it about you that they fear? Valerian snorted. Don't be ridiculous. I'm nobody. You said it yourself. I was dying on the streets of Vespers until Galere found me. Not Galere, Leandri. She was the one searching for you. She relied on you, trusted you. She always turned to you after Galere. I'd prefer you didn't tell anyone that. Not even the captain. Valerian shrugged. Focus on where I came from, not where I went. It will drive Torsion crazy. Think of all the things you achieved in Tyrolia and Elothia. We should be speaking of it, if only to show that Torsion is stirring trouble. If we don't tell the king or the captain, how will they know? I don't trust Torsion. No matter what you say, he'll only twist the truth. Don't give him any more fodder to chew. Leandri always rode your shoulder, Cerulean said. And Valerian flinched, her loss an ache deep in his gut. He felt incomplete, her absence a gaping hole in his soul. That's probably because I was rougher around the edges than the rest of you. She didn't trust me to be diplomatic. Cerulean laughed. Rubbish. You were the best of us all, and you know it. She trusted you, and you always managed to find what she needed, along with the trouble. He smiled fondly and patted Valerian's shoulder. I always said you would be the one to achieve the most out of all of us. Yeah, right. Valerian leaned forward. What else was Torsion interested in? You. What powers we Sentinels have, what power the lady had, what we knew about the Bloodstone, how many of us there were, and where I think they might be, and then back to you again. Is that all? Oh, he was interested in our Sentinels. He wants to visit one. Yours being the closest, he was angling for me to get you to invite him in. Maybe we should let him visit and then not let him out again, Valerian said with a smile. Now, stop showing your teeth. He is only a scholar, and the captain trusts him. He shouldn't, but I suppose he will have to find out for himself. Valerian frowned at his book and began smoothing the crumpled pages. Do you think you'll find the palace? He asked, changing the subject. Cerulean relaxed in his chair, as if aware that confidences were over. He began describing the progress, or rather the lack of progress, that they had made up at the Land Guard. I'm going up to the palace to search the king's library if you want to come. He gave us permission to search for any records of the old palace. Valerian closed his book. Got to be more interesting than this, he said, as he rose. And that's an excerpt from my new book, Sentinals Rising, which is available now, March 17th, and you can find it on Amazon. I hope you enjoy it. So next, book 3 is in the works. I'm currently editing my 3rd book that will follow on after the end of this book. And I'm hoping to publish that in autumn, in the autumn timeframe. So hopefully it will be here soon. I can't believe I have 2 books out and a 3rd on the way. So time to celebrate. So join me, raise a glass and say congratulations to Sentinels Rising. Off she goes. Hopefully you'll all enjoy reading it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you. Bye.